So one more thing to say about price elasticity of demand. We have been describing demand curves as either elastic or inelastic, and that's fine to do, and there's really not a problem with that in most cases, but it is important to know that demand curves are actually not wholly elastic or wholly inelastic. They're elastic at a particular point or inelastic at a particular point. I mean, depending on the point, we would talk about the elasticity of demand at a particular point on a demand curve. So here's an example of what I mean. If we're at P1 up here, a very high price for the product, and it doesn't matter what the product is. You can make up one for yourself here. If we're at P1, we'll see that we are going to have a quantity demanded of Q1. If we're at P2, we're going to have a quantity demanded of Q2. So what makes this, when we look at elasticity, we're going to have to say, okay, so the percentage change in price, right? So the percentage change, it drops this much, this little bit relative to the whole price, right? That's the percentage change. The amount changed relative to the original is a pretty small number. The amount changed relative to the original is probably a bigger number. In fact, the elasticity at this point is going to be a pretty big number. And if it's a big number, then it is more elastic. The bigger the number, the more elastic it is. Here we would see the price drop, right? The change in price relative to the original. Okay, so again, change in price relative to the original price is going to be a pretty good sized number. The change in quantity relative to the original quantity is probably going to be a pretty small number. In other words, down here, the elasticity is actually a fairly small number. So we would say it's inelastic. In other words, it's elastic at this point in the curve, and I'm sorry, it's inelastic down here and elastic up here. So again, we have been saying a demand curve is elastic or inelastic. What's really actually is a more accurate thing to ask is the demand elastic at a particular point on the curve, or is it inelastic at a particular point on the curve? So, and again, that'll be dependent upon the shape of the curve. So anyway, what is important to know is that when we talk about elasticity of demand, we can't really talk about the curve in general. We have to talk about the curve at particular prices and quantities. So is it elastic? This is the elastic portion of the curve. This is an inelastic portion of the curve.